West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
If you don't do something about it November the 5th, we got nobody to blame but ourselves as the American people.
This country will be unrecognizable. Senator Graham, thank you.
Are they about to cry on Fox News? It certainly sounded like Lindsey Graham and Hannity were about to break down in tears. I know that Fox they're really going through some things over there at this propaganda network. They see the polls slipping away from Donald Trump. They see the enthusiasm for Kamala Harris. They see her doing a fantastic job with the recovery efforts with President Biden after Hurricane Helene. And so they're trying to spin, and do everything they can to try to elevate Donald Trump. I'm going to get into some of the biggest freakouts at Fox from last night because it's important that we all see this stuff. We can't just cover our eyes and close our ears to what is going on because this propaganda is being injected into the veins of Americans every single day. Okay, let's get right into it. No time to waste. Laura Ingraham was very upset last night that the longshoreman strike had been suspended. You could see what she is saying, and she tries to blame Kamala Harris for the whole thing. Here was Laura Ingram's take on this good news. Watch.
Well, the longshoreman strike may be temporarily suspended until mid-January, and although Kamala Harris, of course, breathing a sigh of relief tonight, American voters shouldn't. We should never have been here in the first place. And
here is the good news as reported by the Washington Post. The headline, the dock workers are heading back to work. The Washington Post is reporting a 62% wage increase over 6 years. The union had initially requested 77%, so they landed in their negotiations at a 62% increase. Negotiations are going to continue on the issue of automation, but workers agreed to work until at least January 15th. And Hannity is incredibly mad about it. Let's bring up Hannity on Fox. You could see in his face, and you could see in the Chiron, it says, port strike ends for 90 days while parties negotiate a new contract. I'm telling you, I'm not going to play everything, but Hannity was livid, which, as Aaron Rupar, who does a great job, by the way, does incredible work, he says it gives away the game that Trumpers have been playing this week. Everything they do is to try to sabotage, it's to try to gin up some sort of distrust in the government, it's to blame everything on Kamala Harris. The strategy is so obvious, and it's really wearing thin. They kind of have one move in their pocket, and they use it nonstop. Like with the storm, which by all accounts, all the Republican governors are saying Kamala Harris and President Biden are doing an incredible job in the recovery. All the people on the ground are saying that Vice President Harris and President Biden are doing an incredible job. Hannity is trying to push this. Watch.
Kamala Harris, let me be clear. This is rightly Kamala's Katrina on...
No, it's really not. Stop trying to make it a thing, Hannity. It's really not a thing. Actually, the administration is doing a fantastic job providing very strong aid. By the way, we here at the Midas Touch Network just the other day interviewed the spokesperson at FEMA who gave us a laundry list of everything that FEMA is doing right now to help the people on the ground. I recommend you check out that interview. So here's Fox's other propaganda. As I said, the name of the game, spin, spin, spin. So they had this guy on, Hung Cao. He's a Republican in Virginia running for the U.S. Senate against Democrat Tim Kaine. And you can see the headline here, GOP Senate candidate crushes incumbent in debate. Would I surprise you if I said it was actually quite the opposite and that everybody is mocking this guy's performance and calling him out for having a horrible performance and for being absolutely disgraceful during this debate? Like, I'll show you some receipts, right? Because you know we always bring receipts here at the Midas Touch Network. Here was Hung Cao. Here was his Republicans' bigotry on full display as he attacked LGBTQ Virginians who want to participate, who want to join the Army or the Navy. Watch.
When you're using a drag queen to recruit for the Navy, that's not the people we want. What we need is alpha males and alpha females who are going to rip out their own guts, eat them, and ask for seconds. Those are young men and women that are going to win wars.
And he said so many just bizarre, false, extreme things the other night. Like, it was so bizarre. Watch this clip.
Again, he says what he's going to do. It's going to be like, hey, why haven't you done it yet? Honestly, of the 227 bills that Senator Kaine has proposed, only 3 of them made it through.
That's completely wrong.
That's a 99% failure rate. My profession is disarming bombs.
Check the tape on that. That's completely wrong.
Okay, sir. There's 2 truths in the world. Okay, never walk in a Target store wearing a red shirt, and never go against an Asian when it comes to math. Trust me.
What does that mean,
gentlemen? We're going to move on.
Look, he's got a 99% failure rate. If I defuse bombs and I had 99% failure rate, I wouldn't be here.
Best managed state in America, best state for business, best state for education.
I mean, this guy's a total disaster. And let me remind you, like about a month or so ago, like a month and a half ago, he said this, and I'm not making this up. I'll show you the clip. He said, no one in the United States is like, quote, oh my gosh, I will die if I don't have health care. What are you talking about? Watch.
We need incentives, right? So doctors will innovate and do things better just out of incentive. And that's where we want to be able to have choice for everybody to if you want to pay more, then pay more and get better health care. It's just the way it is. But no one in the United States is like, oh my gosh, I will die if I don't have health care.
I think people are actually quite concerned if you're going to take away their health care. I think that's actually is life or death for many, if not all Americans, in fact. I want to show you this clip now. Of course, behind any disgraceful candidate out there, you have who? Donald Trump. And Donald Trump said last month, he said like about a month and a half ago, he said that this guy is a great gentleman. Watch this.
It's really an honor to be with you. Thank you. And we're going to be with this man. This is a great gentleman. I love his name, Hung Cao. I love that name. And that name alone should get you elected, right?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
More importantly, actually, he's tremendous. He's tremendous. He ran a great primary campaign. I endorsed him very early, and he did very well. And we think he's got a very good chance of winning for the Senate. And I really believe it. I hope your community gets out and really supports him like 100%, because you can win. You can win, definitely win. Yep. And we're looking to win the state, and I think we will win the state.
Yeah, it's all very, very weird. Donald Trump and Fox are in full propaganda mode after Jack Smith submitted this damning 165-page filing, and Judge Chutkan released it to the public, which had just copious amounts of information and evidence against Donald Trump related to January 6th. Trump was supposed to have his response to that at October 17th, but asked for it to be pushed. That was granted by Judge Chutkan, and you could hear Judge Janine here on Fox's show, The Five, explaining it. Watch.
Made it so that Jack Smith would be able to submit his papers on this date, and the former president, should have his answers by October 17th. Now, I just heard that was changed about about an hour ago until after the election. But at least if they had gotten their response in by the president's team, you could have had somewhat of a balanced review of this. This is definitely election interference,
And here are the facts, Judge Janine. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure this out. But if Trump had even one iota of evidence to refute even a single word of what Jack Smith said, don't you think he would have wanted to get that out to the public as soon as possible and not wait till after the election? Really makes you think now, does it? I guess these people really don't think. But there's one people on Fox who is a thinker, who actually understands things and is able to explain things from a pro-democracy perspective, thankfully, and that is Jessica Tarlov. Jessica Tarlov at least was able to share with the Fox audience the Politico story about how when wildfires hit California, Donald Trump did not want to help until he was able to see the voter data that said that he had voters there who would support him. Watch this.
But I don't know if anyone else saw this today, what Politico was reporting. As usual with Trump, every accusation is a confession. They have two people who used to work for him in the White House told him that he wasn't going to release funds when the wildfires hit California because he didn't think that his supporters were there. So they had to show him voter data.
But that's Politico. They're a joke.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, they're a joke. They just did a whole article on body language of the debate, saying Waltz's eyeballs gave you passion.
Okay, well, I would.
Please stop.
Donald Trump had to be shown voter data that Orange County was solidly for Trump before he would release disaster relief funds. He even re-upped this in September earlier.
That's hearsay, Jessica.
No, it's not. It's reported in
a periodical that hates Trump and has lied about him for years. Let's go to Judge Janine Pirro.
It must be really weird to live in your world.
says.
They always just try to shrug her off, if you notice. And here's Jessica Tarlov speaking about the FEMA aid, Donald Trump's efforts to try to instill fear, spread false information. And Jessica says if Trump was being honest, he would stand up and say, Congress doesn't care about you. They just left on a 6-week recess without voting to appropriate more funds to disaster relief. It's so true. Watch.
And if Donald Trump was being honest, it would be hard for him. But if he was, he would stand up there and say, Congress doesn't care about you. They just left on a 6-week recess without voting to appropriate more funds to disaster relief. We knew these storms were coming. The disaster declarations were signed a week ago. They still went home to do God knows what for 6 weeks. Your representatives aren't on your side. And that would actually be in tone with his whole outsider shtick, etc. Now,
Jessica Tarlov tried her best to speak about the filing by Jack Smith. Her co-hosts at Fox, however, didn't seem too interested, and they'd be like, well, we heard all this already. What? Like, no, we didn't, and that doesn't make it any less serious, even if we did. Watch.
there is new information in this filing. 165 pages, there has to be something new. We know for sure now that Donald Trump knew he lost, even though Jesse says he didn't know. And we know because he told his kids on Marine One, it doesn't matter if you won or lost, you have to fight like hell. We knew he didn't care if Mike Pence lived or died. Now we know that he said, so what? And that there were 71 threats against Mike Pence, so bad that Mark Short had to go to the...
need cross-examination.
No.
It's not true unless it's tested.
Mark Short went to the Secret Service to say that he was scared for his life. You have anecdotes.
But all those things are not... No. I knew all that.
Yeah.
You knew that he said, so what? And you knew that you knew
it's
about
within the spirit of everything that has been written and said about this before.
Did you know about Ronna McDaniel going to the election official in Michigan who said that's effing nuts? What he's asking us to do? It is in keeping
with everything else I know about it and everything else that she said. Jesse, go ahead.
And as you've seen, especially over the past few days, anytime January 6th is brought up or the 2020 election is brought up, Fox and Donald Trump and all of their kind of surrogates, they all say, oh, why are we talking about the past? Why are we talking about the past? And there's a reason for it, because Donald Trump still won't accept the results, and he still won't say, well, he said he probably won't accept the results of this election if he loses. So Jessica Tarlov had this brilliant response on Fox.
Okay. The narrative is that Democrats are obsessed with January 6th. But the reality is that Donald Trump is the one who's obsessed with 2020. Even today, he was on stage in Michigan saying, I won, and I won by an even bigger margin than 2016. Maybe he should be quiet about it, but he can't stop himself, which puts it into the national discourse.
Here's Judge Janine on the same show asking if, she goes, do you recall the sentencing for Donald Trump by Judge Engoron? I mean, you were a judge? and a district attorney, you should know that there's no sentencing in a civil case. There's no sentencing. It was a civil fraud case. Watch.
And you know what's amazing is, do you recall the sentencing for Donald Trump in New York City by Judge Ergeron was delayed because he didn't want to impact the election, which is kind of amazing because he's about as biased, I thought, as you could get.
As I said, the name of the game over at Fox is spin, spin, spin. If you watch that network all day, you're not only not getting the facts, you're getting lies. You're actually walking away less informed than you are going into it. That's what makes them so dangerous, and they are so unabashed in their lying. They just don't care no matter how stupid it sounds. They are so blatant with what they are trying to do.
It is Friday, the 4th of October of 2024, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English Bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef, and we will be seating you directly for our especially special, daily special, Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life. Okay, all sorts of non sequiturs and innuendo, because that's what a salon is all about, don't you know? Hey, I just want to assure everybody out there, we do not control the weather, all right? By the same token, that climate change is a man-made phenomena as we know it. Of course, climate change has always been extant. Of course it has. But it has been supercharged by our, shall we say, participation. Alrighty. Even ants know how to control their environment. But that doesn't mean that they control the weather. I'm just saying. Yeah, old MTG's out there saying that we are somehow manipulating the hurricane so that it will hit Republican areas. Well, I'm sorry, lady. And then she says, you know, climate change is all a hoax. Yeah, okay. You're saying that chemtrails and we have some sort of weather machine. But climate change, which has been studied for decades, suppressed by the very companies, corporations, industries who were the leading cause of it. I mean, we only have the court records, all right? Ah, boy. But all of that has to be thrown out the window because the crazy lady who wants to take over the United States of America and make it into some sort of heretical Christo-fascist state. I mean, it would be okay as a Christo-fascist state if it wasn't so heretical. Jeez. And anyway, how could it be a Christo-fascist state in any other fashion? If we went by the Jesus loves everybody story, how do you force someone to love? It's not going to happen. It's they either do or they don't. I'm just saying. But anything else, you're going to believe that you have a big weather machine. Oh, and of course, a big valve. And we turn it, we here on the West Coast, and we take all of that fresh water and dump it in the ocean. My God, my God, my God. Okay. And what's sad is that there are people who actually believe that. Others snicker and go, well, it's still kicking the lib, so it's okay. Okay. I don't know. It seems to me like it's all part of a big plan. Oh, and then we will be accused of, well, you're the ones who are believing in these weird conspiracies. I mean, like Russia, that's such a hoax. Yeah, really? course, who is the loudest that is denying any type of Russian involvement? And he's like awash in Russia. And has been since you married Ivana. Okay. We, of a certain mindset back in the day, all kind of wondered about why the Playboy was getting close with the KGB. And, of course, we all joked about the old Khrushchev, and it might have actually originally come from, not Tolstoy, but Trotsky, maybe. Maybe. But the old yarn of Khrushchev saying, when we come to, with our blue boots and come to crush the capitalists and with our blue boot on their neck, I think it's something like that. You can rest assured that the capitalists will sell us the rope we hang them with first. I'm just saying. So we all wondered why the rich Playboy was snuggling up with the Ruskies. What was he doing? Selling the rope? Mm-hmm. And here we are, selling nuke secrets. Ah, boy. Give him the rope to hang us with. And who did it? Yeah. The spoiled rich boy who just had to get his way. I was disrespected. Well, it was easy. His great origin story is that he punched his first grade teacher because the teacher, I guess, corrected him. And people look at that. His I don't know, are they cucks? I don't know. They're certainly beta. It really takes a beta to start accusing other people of being betas. Alphas don't need to do anything. They can just sit there quietly. Mm-hmm. The strong silent type. Excuse me. An alpha doesn't have to say they're alpha. That's all I'm saying. And the only one whining about people being betas are worse. I'm just saying. I hate this kind of distinction and level of awareness or whatever it is. But there it is. Like we used to tell Bubba back in the day, hey, Bubba, if you don't want to be a stereotype, stop being a stereotype, okay? Bubba said, whoa, what's a stereotype? Yeah, exactly. It's a type of stereo, okay? You know what that is? And they still don't know. Because no one plays anything on a stereo anymore. What's a stereo? Console? Or a la carte? Yes, the good old days. And as Bob Dylan said, the bad ones ain't far behind. So be careful, okay? And we are. Well, it is all indicative of this madness that seems to be accelerating as we become just weeks and soon to be days from the election. This acceleration of madness is because they are very, very, very afraid. Because they've been exposed. The giant bear has been awoken from its slumber. Giant? Yeah, we're the giant. We're the terrible giant. Okay. Awoken from its slumber. That's us. And people are like saying, hey, the emperor has a really wispy bouffant comb over and a bunch of pancake makeup that I don't know who's applying it now, but it is greasy as all get out. Oh, my God. They used to have it kind of like a little powdery. Now it's greasy. Someone doesn't have the airbrush powder. Yep. Okay. Well, people have woken up to it. And the only folks left are the most caustic, the most toxic, which we have always known as the toxic third, which is always there. It always has been there. You kind of account for it, but their power or whatever is outsized. It doesn't truly exist. They're just a squeaky wheel. And you get that squeaky wheel and you feel like you got to shut them up. Okay, well, I don't know. Oil them over with that grease paint. Shut them up. I keep telling everybody that, look, the gated communities are already built. All you have to do is put them in there. They got their strip mall Botox clinics right next to the strip mall Prosperity Gospel Church. They got the the really weird water feature in their fake little marinas. Everybody gets a boat slip. They'll love it. They won't even know until it's too late. And then they'll still be happy because they got everything they need. We could get Disney on it. I'm telling you, this could be a growth industry because all you really have to do is, I don't know, update the infrastructure for them, turn the guard shacks around so that they're turned in, and they can have visitors. Then they got to sign up for it. That's what I say. All right. How about that? Is that a little too authoritarian? Well, I don't know. Tough love is sometimes needed in these situations. I thought the Rajneeshis were out of it when they came to this state of Oregon and decided we're going to put, like, what was it, E. coli on the salad at the salad bar at Sizzler. Because they wanted to suppress voter turnout. People are too sick crapping. They won't go vote. They tried to kill a state attorney. I thought these people were out of it. I mean, they had a whole town. And every morning, we used to see this in Laguna Beach. That's why they moved from Laguna Beach, because they were kind of landlocked. It's not very big there. But old Bagran would ride around in a Rolls Royce. Hi, silver, whatever, Rolls Royce. Hi. So then he moves up to Oregon here. And I guess he gets like 100 Rolls Royces, Silver Shadows. And he would have a big entourage in this giant loop in this town that they bought. And he'd wave to his bouncy followers. They were bouncing up and down. Oh, yes. Hare Krishna. Oh, Bhagwan. So I thought the Rajneeshis were pretty out of it. Man, MAGA takes the cake. This is a national movement. I thought the Rajneeshis that were kind of dangerous because they were willing to go to extremes like poison the salad bar at Sizzler. Okay. I'm just saying that we as the left Democratic voters never advocated for that BS as if that was supposed to be part of our, I don't know, they were part of our political spectrum somehow. They were on our left side. All I know is that when I was part of the Laguna Beach Free Poets, we would sometimes talk about the cults that arose, like Synanon. You know, everybody knew that was Scientology. Everybody knew Synanon. Yikes. And any other number of cults that were arising at the time. You know, I mean, Bubba Free-John. I don't know if that was necessarily a dangerous cult, but I knew a lot of people who were part of Da Free-John. I don't know what he's called now. Da Free-John Ananda. But the Rajneeshis were kind of funny because, they had cousins bouncing up and down at the LAX. And you had to negotiate this area to get into, to where you wanted to go. A lot of times we were able, this is before like real check points and stuff. We used to go to LAX to play Frisbee. Big old long arcing games of Frisbee. It was fun. You didn't want to hit people, but we were good. So you had to negotiate, Rajneeshis. You had, I think, Moonies too. You had Moonies back then. Yikes. So the Rajneeshis were kind of, you negotiated the Hare Krishnas of whatever belief system. They were just like a generic Hare Krishna. But the Rajneeshis, they were an odd group, shall we say. Well-moneyed. And they kicked it to their guru. Enough so that they bugged out of town. It was like no announcement. And I remember when it happened, we were like, good. We're just kind of sorry for wherever they're going. And that's exactly what happened. So I don't think that they felt they could actually make the kinds of inroads into American culture to take it over. American, quote, culture. The American political system to take it over in Orange County. No matter how, I don't know, how much of an oasis of calm that Laguna Beach was back in the day. Yeah, they were surrounded by all this madness, birchers and stuff. At least Laguna Beach had some forward-thinking people. All right? Back in the day. So when the Rajneeshis left, us were like, oh, cool. This is great. And then they moved to my home state of Oregon. So I kind of followed them, and here we are. We got MAGAs. I don't think very many of them come from the Rajneeshis. I just wanted to mention that Rajneesh himself is not like some liberal icon. He's a fairly conservative political nationalist, or was. So we all saw that. There's nothing Martin Luther King about Bagram Rajneesh. And there's nothing Christian about whatever that is up there. I don't want to go as far to say he's the Antichrist, but many people have. They have. Okay. Well, once again, my freestyle ranting here at the beginning has eaten up quite a bit of time. I'm sorry. It's Friday, and we're still within, I don't know. It's been a tough year, okay? Losing both my parents and beloved animals. It sucks. But anyway, the sun's still shining. We have an election coming up. I'm joyful in spite of all of it. So what do we have in store for you? Am I trying to modify the joy? No, it's just the news. Okay? We like to kick it around here, and I better let you know what we have in store for you before we don't have anything to give you in store because we're out of time. Alrighty. Well, of course, at the top, Fox News is totally losing it. They hate the fact that things are working. We can't have things working. How we can't win an election when things are working. Of course they can't. On the rest of the menu, a federal judge ruled against the correctional healthcare giant WellPath after company leaders intentionally destroyed email evidence in order to prevent its use at trial. And this is the third time they've done this. You would think third strike. We'll see how it goes. Abortion rights groups are out raising opponents 8-1 on November ballot measures. Will it be enough when you have right-wing MAGA Nazis in power that with just a stroke of their pen can say, oh, you voted on this silly measure. We don't think that you children should be able to do that. And they keep doing that. And the Department of Justice and Microsoft disrupted a hacking group tied to Russian intelligence that tried to worm its way into the systems of dozens of Western think tanks, journalists, and former military and intelligence officials. Told you so. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where the Dutch government blamed a state actor for hacking into its national police network. And Mexico's new president, Claudia Sheinbaum, started her day much like her political mentor, ex-President López Obrador, began most of his, with an early morning news briefing from the National Palace. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Of course, we are going to tuck into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and it is by Conrad Wilson out of Oregon Public Broadcasting. A federal judge ruled against the correctional healthcare giant WellPath after company leaders intentionally destroyed email evidence in order to prevent its use at trial. The ruling stems from a case of a woman who died in 2018 at the Josephine County Jail in Southern Oregon. WellPath destroyed emails surrounding her death through its implementation of a company-wide policy known as the Purge. It is the third time a federal judge has found WellPath, one of the nation's largest for-profit providers of medical and mental health care to people in prisons and jails, destroyed evidence relevant to wrongful death cases where the company was being sued. After the company deleted emails, it then spent years making misleading statements that intentionally omitted why it was unable to turn over emails, according to 3 separate rulings from federal judges in 2 states. The rulings have cost WellPath millions of dollars. The company did not return multiple requests for comment. Jeff Mulvihill of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Abortion rights ballot measure supporters across the country have raised nearly 8 times as much as groups campaigning against the amendments on the November ballots, but that advantage may not translate into a huge benefit down the stretch in Florida, the most expensive of the 9 statewide campaigns to enshrine abortion rights into state constitutions. So far, campaign finance data compiled by the watchdog group Open Secrets and analyzed by the Associated Press tells a similar story in most of those states. Amendment backers have raised multiple times as much money and have far more donors, bringing in nearly $108 million compared to $14 million from their opponents, as of reports aggregated by Tuesday. Still, it is not a sure thing that will mean more spending to promote the measures in every state in the final weeks before the November 5 elections. The apparent differential on campaign finance reports does nothing to reassure me that we will not see large late spending on these campaigns, said Kelly Hall, executive director of the Fairness Project, which is providing money and other support for abortion rights groups in several of the campaigns. The measures would roll back restrictions in some states and enshrine protections into the constitutions in others after the Supreme Court's 2022 ruling overturning Roe v. Wade. Most GOP-controlled states implemented bans or restrictions after the ruling. Most Democratic-controlled ones offered some protections for abortion access. The ballot measures could also drive voter turnout in the elections. Well, that's rather obvious, Captain Obvious. Klepper at the Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. A hacking group tied to Russian intelligence tried to worm its way into the systems of dozens of Western think tanks, journalists, and former military and intelligence officials, Microsoft and U.S. authorities said. The group, known as Star Blizzard to cyber espionage experts, targeted its victims with emails that appeared to come from a trusted source, a tactic known as spear phishing. In fact, the email sought access to the victims' internal systems as a way to steal information and disrupt their activities. Star Blizzard's actions were persistent and sophisticated, and the group often did detailed research on its targets before launching an attack. Star Blizzard also went after civil society groups, U.S. companies, American military contractors, and the Department of Energy, which oversees many nuclear programs. You know, like secrets that were at Mar-a-Lago. I wonder how they got there. Very interesting. Well, let us now go to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. This week, David Cronenberg, Move Over. If body horror isn't your thing, steer clear of The Substance. Director Carl Lee Fergeet is a fan of King Cronenberg, and his influences on this one are apparent. However, unlike her idol, Fergeet is focusing on a very real horror. Female aging in a society obsessed with youth. Here, our protagonist, the wonderfully named Elizabeth Sparkle, played by Demi Moore, is a former actress turned TV fitness show host. Elizabeth is unceremoniously fired on her 50th birthday because, as she's told by her male boss, once a woman is 50, she no longer, quote, has it. After being involved in a car accident, Elizabeth learns about a new life-changing procedure involving the substance. Her life certainly has changed after taking it. She literally, and in a grisly fashion, becomes two people. The new person, named Sue, played by Margaret Qualley, is a younger, hotter version of Elizabeth. Although the two beings are separate, they are one person, and neither can survive without the other. However, that's quickly forgotten once Sue steps into the role of Elizabeth's old job and tries to live life to the fullest. Casting Demi Moore, an actress well known for facing misogyny in the 90s and who's been vocal about body image and disordered eating issues, and who by all accounts looks amazing for 62, is nothing less than brilliant. Arguably, Moore gives the best performance of her career here. There's a real vulnerability on display, and depth best shown when Elizabeth is preparing for a date, but can't escape the image of her other self, Sue gazing out at her on a huge billboard. While the substance may not be for everyone, its nuanced message about the pressure on women to remain perpetually young-looking is something that should resonate with half the population, and maybe far more. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by and for the people. Our report on court challenges to undated or misdated mail-in ballots in Pennsylvania mentioned the materiality provision of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. Just what is the materiality provision and how can it help protect voters? In question are ballot envelopes from otherwise eligible voters received on time and correct, except for a missing or incorrect date on the outer envelope. Pennsylvania's election law invalidates those ballots, and as many as 10,000 voters were affected in 2022. The materiality provision, part of the 1964 Civil Rights Act Title I, was designed to keep racist election officials from rejecting voter registrations for minor mistakes, used as a voter suppression tactic throughout the South. For instance, white voters were given assistance and alerted to mistakes, while black voters were disenfranchised for a simple spelling error. For years, federal courts found that Title I applies to the whole voting process and ruled that missing dates, envelopes, and postmarks are immaterial to the validity of the ballot. Only recently have Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito and other conservative judges argued that it should apply only to registration and overturn such appeals. If a voter does everything right but makes a trivial mistake, shouldn't we make every effort to honor the intent of the voter? The ACLU's High Court appeal may answer that question. We've linked to more at AmericanDemocracyMinute.org. I'm Brian Beal.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1946. That was the day that President Harry S. Truman issued Executive Order 9639. It ordered the U.S. Navy to seize control of more than 4 dozen oil refineries across the country. As World War II was drawing to a close, workers in many industries were growing increasingly restless. They had seen company owners rake in record profits, and the workers felt they had not received their fair share. This included oil refinery workers. In August, the workers rejected a proposed settlement of their grievances over wages and hours. On September 17th, the CIO Oil Workers Union called for a strike of its 35,000 members. Although the war was ending, Truman knew oil was needed to demobilize and redeploy the troops. He used that as a basis to thwart the workers and the strike. His executive order declared that the war effort will be unduly impeded or delayed by such interruptions. He went on to state, the Secretary of the Navy is hereby authorized and directed to take possession of the plants and facilities used in the transportation, refining, and processing of petroleum and petroleum products. Telegrams were sent to the refineries declaring that they were now under the control of the U.S. government. A third of the oil refineries in the nation came under this order. This included refineries owned by the giants of the industry, including Gulf, Shell, and Standard Oil. This was not the last time Truman attempted this tactic. He tried similar methods to intervene in labor disputes on the railroads and in the steel mills. Truman was certainly not alone. For more than a century, U.S. presidents have intervened to end strikes. From Grover Cleveland's calling out the Army to end the Pullman strike in 1884 to Reagan locking out the Patco workers in 1981. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon, on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 48 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting highs in the low 80s, winds out of the west-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour, clear skies overnight, with lows in the upper 40s, low 50s, winds light and variable, then mainly sunny skies on Saturday and Sunday, highs in the mid-80s, winds light and variable. Ragweed pollen is now rated high here in Rogue River proper. The air quality index has ticked up into the moderate range at 53 parts per million, and that daytime UV index remains moderate at level 4. Barometric pressure is falling at 29.91 inches. Visibility is up to 10 miles, and relative humidity is at 82%. It'll dry out a little bit, not much. Okay, weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world, and that is the Weather Underground. London is 62 degrees and partly cloudy. Paris is 61 degrees and partly cloudy. Rome is 68, partly cloudy, with a severe warning for thunderstorm activity, so that's exciting. Kabul is 66 degrees and clear. Hong Kong is 68 and cloudy. Tokyo is 75 and cloudy. Auckland, New Zealand is 54 degrees and fair. San Francisco, California is 60 degrees and mostly cloudy. And there is a heat advisory for the region. I was mistaken, actually, in previous heat advisories this week. It was not for San Francisco proper, but for the region from, well, the South Bay all the way up into the North Bay and Sonoma counties. So they are expecting highs in the upper 90s, low 100s. So that's what that heat advisory is about. Chicago, Illinois is 66 and mostly cloudy, and they just took off their small craft advisory on the lake. And New York is 71 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. world desk of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. A cyber attack that broke into a police account and accessed work-related contact details of all Dutch police officers was certainly carried out by hackers working for a foreign government, the justice minister told lawmakers. Dutch intelligence agencies consider it highly likely that a state actor is responsible. Justice and Security Minister David Van Wiel wrote in a letter to lawmakers on Wednesday night about the breach, which was first revealed last Friday. He added that police, together with national security partners, are doing everything they can to protect police employees and prevent further damage. Van Wiel did not give further details, citing an ongoing investigation into the data breach. The Dutch police force is the country's biggest employer, with nearly 63,000 staff. Nina Koeman, chair of the Netherlands Police Union, called the hack a nightmare. It is now important to protect data, protect colleagues, and track down the perpetrators. The government last week said the hack did not reveal personal details of police officers beyond their names or details about ongoing investigations. Dutch Police Chief Danny Knoll said she had spoken to staff about their concerns following news of the data breach, noting they were concerns that I share because in order to ensure safety outside, you have to feel safe inside. The Dutch General Intelligence and Security Service warned last year in its annual report that countries, including China and Russia, were actively engaged in cyber attacks and espionage targeting national interests in the Netherlands. Fabiola Sanchez at the World Desk of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Mexico's new president, Claudia Sheinbaum, started her day much like her political mentor, ex-President López Obrador, began most of his, with an early morning news briefing from the National Palace. López Obrador's news briefings, known as the Mañaneras, were marathon affairs featuring folksy dialogue, verbal jousting with the press, and frequently long history lessons. His oratorical skills turned his 2.5-hour-long daily Mañaneras into a powerful political weapon. Sheinbaum kept her morning briefing shorter, less combative, and more concise, in keeping with her character as a scientist and academic. She said she would keep some of her predecessor's fixtures, like a weekly segment attacking what she called media lies about the government. The new president also continued a diplomatic dispute with Spain, which has refused to apologize for abuses during the 1500s conquest of Mexico that many thought she would try to defuse. Sheinbaum also continued López Obrador's efforts to downplay drug cartel violence in the northern state of Sinaloa, saying it was not among the states with the highest numbers of murders this week. It is no surprise that Sheinbaum decided to continue with the successful formula of her mentor. She had promised to continue virtually everything he did. She will hope to set the press's daily agenda, just as López Obrador did throughout his presidency. After her June 2nd election victory, the former Mexico City mayor began holding midday news briefings that concluded within half an hour. Sheinbaum would open with announcements and then take questions from journalists. In her first press conference on Wednesday, Sheinbaum was a bit more punctual in her responses, and unlike López Obrador, did not use questions as a pretext for half-hour discourses on obscure chapters of Mexican history. But she did open her press conference with a governmental apology on the 56th anniversary of the October 2nd, 1968 Army massacre of student pro-democracy protesters in Mexico City's Tlatelolco Square, in which as many as 300 people were killed. Some numbers are over 1,000. Sheinbaum revealed that her mother had participated in the movement and had been expelled from a state-run university in retaliation. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day and the week, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, so we will be meeting up here on Monday for River City Hash Monday. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day, all night, and all weekend for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we will meet up here on Monday, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appétit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.